Most people wake up and then somebody yells, hurry up, we're going to be late every single day, right? Or did you brush your teeth? The kid's 13 years old. You know, how many years have you been saying that? So what is happening in that first part of the morning that could possibly cause the heart rate to rise and you trigger fight or flight? If you can start to catch some of those habitual things first thing in the morning, you're going to have some breakthroughs happen in your family. Because most kids hear that, hurry up, you're going to be late. Their heart rate raises, they release this flood of hormones. I call it, they're called catecholamines. I call it a cocktail. They're now under the influence. Okay. You don't need to be taking any external drugs. If you just release these drugs, you're not optimal.
Hello, and welcome to the Stroke It podcast. I'm Alday Townsend, your host. This podcast is for individuals that are wanting to grow personally and professionally. The podcast is going to offer mindset shifts, personal experiences from myself and guest. We're also going to provide some great resources, tools, and direction for navigating life. The goal is to inspire you and encourage you to take ownership of your life and begin living it completely fully today. Let's get to stroking it. Hello and welcome. I'm Alday Townsend, your host. I'm here with Elle Ingalls. She is a C-level executive coach. She's helping business owners, entrepreneurs, professionals, and high-achieving students who are driven or struggling with anxiety, stress, and more. She is the creator of the pressure-free method. We met a few weeks ago at a mastermind, and I was like, I need you in my life. Elle's going to be coming and working with not only my teachers and my team members, but hopefully some of the community members that can benefit from all of her techniques and tips. And I'm super excited for her to share her knowledge with you today. We're going to be talking about releasing stress for yourself, helping your spouse, and being a great friend or family member. So Elle, thank you so much for joining me.
Great to be with you, Jenny.
So before we get started and you're sharing all the knowledge, please share with our listeners, what season of life are you in and how did you get to this point?
Wow. Okay. So I'm 61 and so I am an empty nester. My husband and I are empty nesters. We raised 3 boys. Our sons, what's interesting is that although they are often independent on their own, we're very close. So my 3 sons actually own their own business together. So it's really fun family-wise for us. Let's see, I live in Michigan, so today it's cold, but yesterday it was 70. So we're having the weirdest winter ever. Originally from New Hampshire, went to school at University of Michigan and ended up marrying a Michigander. So have been here my whole adult life. What else was it that you wanted to know from me? Like,
how did you end up releasing stress or helping people reduce the stress in their life? Was there a pivotal moment where you're like, I need to help these people?
Yeah, I didn't just wake up and say, oh, I'm going to be a performance coach now. Like, that's not how this happened. My background is in music and business and athletics. So I was an athlete at the University of Michigan, and I was the first woman in orchestral conducting there. So first woman to conduct the symphony there. I'm a violinist, and I also got an MBA. So I went into symphony management. And so I've been a performer and an executive for years. And you and I have a lot in common because I built a music school with my husband. And so that was what I did prior to 2010. And our dining room table is the center of our home, wherever we've lived. And one night we're all just kind of shooting the breeze. My 2 eldest were playing baseball for a high school team. My youngest was 10 at the time. We're just kind of shooting the breeze around the table, talking, and my eldest goes, Mother, you should coach our baseball team in your mental toughness tips, the things you teach your violin students and us. Our team would be amazing and wouldn't crash and burn when the score is on the other side. And I just started laughing because Jenny, I mean, who wants their mother in the dugout? Right? It's like, I had coached them in middle school track, which is 2 genders, right? But it was like, okay, am I really going to do this? And I looked at him and I go, you're really serious, aren't you? And he goes, I am so serious. And I looked at my middle son. He's like, we want you, Mom. We want you. And so with that encouragement, if you will, I started to just write, like a nonstop write about all these things I have used to be a consummate performer, and really dug into what is the stress response. So at first, I just created a little pamphlet. My husband's a pro writer. He tightened the language, threw in funny baseball graphics so the boys would think it was funny. went to the coaches, went to the tough coach first, the guy with his arms folded and the chew in his mouth. And he was like, oh my gosh, this is really great. This has merit. You should work with the boys. So then I took it to the head coach, and he hired me to be his private coach. He was a financial planner. It was 2010, really, really tough time for that profession. And so I started coaching him. And then my department chair at the college where I taught violin for years, she finds out what I'm doing and literally grabs her checkbook and goes, I need this. Can we start tomorrow? So I had 2 paying clients and a baseball team. And then I just super dug in, Jenny. I went really deep into fight or flight. What's going on when we feel certain emotions? What's happening to us physiologically? And how can we break the stress cycle of hormone release? So that is my expertise. And I just drilled very deeply on it. I've coached psychologists and therapists. And when I do, they go, we didn't learn this in school. We don't know this. I've talked to, been the speaker for medical conventions, and they're like, we don't know this. So I just went really deeply on it because that is the key to performing at a high level, both mentally and physically. And so it started organically, it just happened, and word of mouth, people started talking about it. And, even the person with whom we met, Dustin, he hired me immediately to work with his daughter. It's once you find out what is possible by understanding this method and using it, there really isn't anybody on the planet that couldn't benefit. My clients do tend to be high achievers. They're people who are driven, who really want to be able to do it all and do it well and not crash and burn and not hurt themselves mentally or physically. And we have so much anxiety today. So I say that most people are high achievers, but I do have a little subset of people that are stuck, really stuck. They've been anxious maybe for years. And they've tried everything, yoga, meditation, medication, and nothing has cracked the code for them. And I love working with those people because it only takes a few weeks and they start changing that trajectory and they start to free themselves of this struggling that's been going on for so long. So I'd love to say I just feel there's too much struggling and we get out of that. So that's how it all started.
That's an amazing story. I love that. And thank you for sharing all that. Congratulations too. I mean, the fact that you just felt something and that your son was encouraging you. I mean, that's a mom's dream to have her son believe in her so much that he encourages your future. And he must be so proud of you now because look what you're doing.
I'm going to do this. I have this right here on my desk. So my son doesn't give Christmas or Mother's Day presents or anything like that. He writes us letters. Okay. I just want to read the beginning of it. This is my Christmas letter from my eldest son, Hugh. Dear Mother, what a beautiful life we live to share messages of love that connect us and energize us, regardless of who we are in the world. The work you are doing is a gift to the world. You are a gift to the world. The work is pointing people down in a direction and path they never thought possible. You're moving the world to a better place every day. Angels work. And then it goes on and on. He's 31, okay? And he texts me every morning to have an amazing pressure-free day. It's just amazing, really.
So I have to say that's a testament to probably you and your husband and the upbringing. But it has to do with some of the work that you're doing to where he feels, even though he's running a company, that he feels that he has the time, the mental capacity, and he's not waking up with a lot of anxiety, needing to get to work because he has used your tools before.
Correct. Yeah. All of my sons have dived very deeply into my work. My youngest was 10. And I can share this because I wrote a parenting book and it's in there. Anything that's in there, I'm free to share for my sons. But when he was that age, he would, if he got one wrong on the capitals test, the state capitals test, or messed up something in math, he would just be furious at himself, so angry. And he's getting dragged to all the other kids' things too. So he just wanted more control in his life. So he'd get so frustrated. And it was getting to a real boiling point that I was going to take him to my friend who was child psychologist the very month that I created this method, the pressure-free method. So I start changing because I'm using the method on me. And then I start sharing it with him. And he had a complete epiphany and transformation at the age of 10. And so he ended up going to Columbia. And I don't share this as a bragging parent because this is him. This is what he accomplished. So he goes to Columbia and becomes like his junior year, they're paying him, right? So it's like he never paid anything to that school. He was salutatorian of the class of 22. He had the best friends. They actually all fly in once a year here to do a little fun run with us. He has the best friend set. He also ran 5 marathons in the 7 months of his senior year. I mean, who does that, right? Even usually 1 or 2, but 5, which meant he was gone a lot, traveling to all these cities around the country. And so I just share that because I don't know where he'd be if he was still angry. And anger is one of those emotions: annoyance, anger, feeling ashamed, and of course, anxiety and fear, being afraid. Those are the emotions that can trigger the stress response. For him, it was really anger. It was really anger. For me, it's annoyance. I get so annoyed at things. So that's the one I have to work on a lot. But yeah, it was to watch my boys be able to work well together and their whole team. I've coached their whole team in a few years. I've been coaching their team in Pressure Free too. So it's pretty cool.
I can't wait to have you come work with my team. But since we're on the topic of parenting and you're talking about your sons, and I really want to dive in, I want to give all the parents that are listening some tools and tips and tricks. So if they're dealing with anxiety, they're maybe dealing with depression, there's a lot of bullying. I mean, I can't even imagine being a parent in today's world. I mean, the way the parents, the way they treat each other, much less the other kids, treating the other kids. I mean, it's so sad. With my child-based business, I actually had to close my lobby and keep parents out because of the way that they were treating each other. Like if my kid's not in the IB program and your kid, it's just the bullying between parents is really, really bad. And then with the whole vaccinations, it's like your kid's not, it's just isolation. It was really, really bad. But anyways, if there's a parent that maybe connects with something that I just said, what are some tips that you can provide to our listeners to help them with the stress?
Mm-hmm. The crux, I'm going to just share my method right up front here. So my method has 3 simple steps. The first is to identify what your targets are. What do you want as a family? Is there a lot of disrespect going on within your family? Is there a lot of fighting, a lot of arguing, and you don't want that anymore? So get really clear about what you do want. That's the first step. Sometimes clients come to me and they just say, Elle, I need to feel happier. Like I'm so burned out and so tired of this rat race. I just need to feel happier. So it can be an emotion, but it could also be something you're striving for as a family. Like, oh, we want to go camping next summer, or, we want to go to Israel, or like, what do you want to do? So, that's getting some targets down on paper is the first thing. And if you're just doing this on yourself, just really take a moment to dream. Like in a perfect world, I would no longer fight with my 12-year-old or whatever it is. Like write it down. So targets fuel what happens next. The second step are triggers. Noticing what makes you feel tense body-wise or any of those emotions that I shared. So angry or annoyed, anxious or afraid, or ashamed. And of course, anyone that falls under that, like frustration, nervousness, anything like that. So start to identify a couple things, especially first part of the morning. Most people wake up and then somebody yells, hurry up, we're going to be late. Every single day, right? Or did you brush your teeth? The kid's 13 years old. How many years have you been saying that, right? So what is happening in that first part of the morning that could possibly cause the heart rate to rise and you trigger fight or flight? If you can start to catch some of those habitual things first thing in the morning, you're going to have some breakthroughs happen in your family. Because most kids hear that, hurry up, you're going to be late. Their heart rate raises. They release this flood of hormones. I call it, they're called catecholamines. I call it a cocktail. They're now under the influence. Okay. You don't need to be taking any external drugs. If you just release these drugs, you're not optimal. So even though you worked hard on the math facts, they get to school and they have some memory lapses. It's not their fault. It is not their fault. I've taken CD students. Students have never gotten a B in their life and moved to all straight A's or A's and B's in a matter of weeks. Children are brilliant, but if they trigger fight or flight, the hippocampus is shut down, Parents too, like you meet someone in a social situation and 5 seconds later, you can't remember the name, right? Is this a Joe or Jack or John? Like starts with a J, right? We're not stupid. We're not stupid. But what's happening is every time we trigger these hormones, we shut down the hippocampus, we shut down the whole cortex. It's hard to make decisions. It's hard enough for students to make good decisions with peer pressure, everything going on today. But when this shuts down, they won't make good decisions because they also have no willpower. So there's 2 areas of the brain that those shut down as well. That's why we binge, like give me the clicker, right? or wine or whatever it is you binge. You're binging it because you have no self-control. So I love to tell people, like, it's not your fault. You don't know about the releases of these hormones and what they're doing to you. But once you get to understand that and we get to clean it up, you get to really take charge of your life. One of my 17-year-old clients said, you're just telling people how to be grown-ups. You're teaching them how to be grown-up, Mrs. Ingalls, but grown-ups aren't grown-ups. Right? They're not mature, right? Yeah. They're in junior high. So we play with that. And so identify what those triggers are. Then third step, tools and the 10-second solution. If all you remember here from what we're doing today is that from the first moment a stimulus happens and you feel that tension happen, you've got about 10 seconds before the mechanism in your brain tells your heart rate to charge up, tells your adrenal glands to release the cocktail. 10 seconds is plenty of time to smile. Now, you're going to see a lot of articles out there today that fake smiling doesn't work. They don't know about the timing. The timing is critical. You need to catch it before you've released the hormones. Once you're in fight or flight, fake smiling really doesn't work very well. And you won't feel like it's genuine. But your smile can even be sarcastic, like, oh, look at that. She's running late again today. Or whatever the thing is.
So just starting to smile within that 10 seconds of being triggered or having the feeling of fight or flight can actually reduce the amount of stress.
So here's what's happening. When the corners of the mouth go up, and by the way, I actually look at people's smiles deeply when I'm working with them, because some people smile and the corners of their mouth don't really go up. And I have a theory about that they probably weren't smiled at enough as children, as babies. So when the corners of the mouth go up.
Now I'm like smiling, like, oh, where am I?
There you go. Yeah, you're good. It's like, this is the corners go up just like this tiny bit, right? That releases neuropeptides, these little molecules that then allow the other neurotransmitters to work well in the brain and keep all this firing. That is the purpose of the smile, just to keep those neuropeptides releasing. They're tiny molecules that then the bigger neurotransmitters can do their work. But if we don't smile, it's very easy for us to go into fight or flight, and now this shuts down. So smile is a very simple little tool you can use. Again, it can be sarcastic, but it doesn't really matter. It's the physiology of your body telling your brain, I must be fine. And then another tool that to me is just so important is to relax your abs. We've been taught in this society to pull our abs in tightly, 6-pack abs. Working with those baseball boys, this was a hard one, trying to get them to relax their abs. But oh my gosh, then they started hitting like unbelievably and pitching unbelievably. In fact, my eldest, both my kids were pitchers. My eldest was a starting pitcher. His ERA at one point during the season was 1.17. Actually, it was 0.51. That meant people didn't even get past second base with him. And then he finished the season at 1.17 because he had one game he got rocked. But that's an unbelievably low ERA, and he was not the fastest pitcher in the city. But it was just unbelievable what he was able to achieve by staying pressure-free and keeping the abs relaxed. He got empowered. So let's play with that for a moment. Put your hands on your belly and just relax your abs. Just let it all hang out. I'm a 70s girl.
Does that mean push them out, or just like...
Don't push them out. Nope. Just let the muscles relax. You'll feel it kind of fall into your hands. Okay? And a lot of people that this is hard. This might not be easy because we've been taught to keep so much tension there. That tension, by the way, is acting like ribs because we don't have ribs down there. It's protection. And now roll your hands over to where it kind of tucks back in. So go down over your belly. And now with your pinky edge in there, relax that spot. You probably held tension in there. Like it hasn't relaxed. When I told you relax your abs the first time, those did not relax. So your lowest abs, if you look at other animals, they don't tuck in. Their abdomens are all one. But humans have been, I think we're just created such an afraid society, so much anxiety, so much hurt. Let's be honest, like real hurt and pain in our lives. Everyone I have ever coached, it doesn't matter what on the scale of trauma you might think it is, we've all had stuff happen to us. So relaxing that spot there does a few things. These are the 4 things I think about. It empowers you, like deeply opens your power from the inside out. So you don't have to force your agenda on your kids, your partner, or anybody anymore. They're going to actually come more to you because you're going to look like a rock to them. The other thing it is safety. It's telling your brain you must be safe, otherwise you're going to tighten that spot. So by relaxing that spot, instantly the brain says no reason to go into fight or flight. The third thing is when you relax there, you actually open up yourself to love, and the last thing is money. So if you're having money issues, if you have a lot of money pressure, start relaxing in that spot, because when we have financial pressures and things going on that way, we will tighten there so much because we don't feel safe. And what's crazy, and you and I talked about this before we got on here, but we are such a comparative society today. We're comparing ourselves against so many things on this little gadget, the phone, on all the social media, but also just in general in our neighborhoods and in all our situations. All of that comparison is tightening that spot because we feel we're not enough. No matter how much money we make, it's never enough. No matter how much love we're experiencing, it's never enough. You need to relax that spot. So from the inside out, you feel safe and empowered. And now everything is enough because you're okay. And so now when all those triggers come, you're literally in a space where you're more of a rock to be more emotionally resilient, to not overreact to the smallest thing, like your child having trouble putting their shoes on, whatever the thing is. So does that make sense? Like this ab thing? Because it's something that...
I mean, it makes sense, but to me, I'm like, so just this physical difference and just focusing on that and following those 3 steps, it's amazing. That's going to reduce a lot of stress load and a lot of anxiety, and it's going to make you clear. So talk about the benefits, like all this work that you're doing and following these steps or incorporating these tools into our life. What are some of the benefits that you've noticed or you've seen with some of your clients?
Oh my goodness. I can never promise anything. Let's be right up front, because depending on how someone uses my method and what happens for them, everyone is really different. Some people don't even on the intake tell me some of the problems they're having. And then all of a sudden they'll come to me and say, you know what? I had ulcerative colitis my whole adult life and now I'm in remission. I've never been in remission. But when we don't trigger those stress hormones, I'll talk first like physical things. I'm going to share mine. So my first big violin competition, this hand completely broke out in eczema. I had cracked bleeding knuckles on my bow hand for 35 years. That's embarrassing, number one. One of my little 6-year-old clients, he must have gone to Bible school or something. He goes, Mrs. Ingalls, do you have leprosy? That's how bad it looked. Okay. So my hands cleared up in 8 weeks of using my method on myself. I hadn't touched the skin here in 35 years. It was like a miracle to me. I cried. And then I've always had dense fibrous breast tissues, and my breast tissues completely changed in 8 weeks. I just had another client. She's in her 50s. She's always had dense fibrous breast tissues, completely cleaned up in 8 weeks. And 4 weeks. Hers was 4 weeks. So typically my clients are receiving major benefits 6 to 8 weeks in. That's when they've noticed enough triggers to start really gaining traction in my method. Headaches are gone, allergies are gone, any sort of like chronic things they've had for a long time start to have lessened symptoms. Let's put it that way, lessened symptoms, whatever it is. If they had behavioral things like they bite their nails, they click their pens, they're fidgety, all the fidgety stuff, they actually, I just coached a 22-year-old college student who was so fidgety in the first few sessions. By the end, and I had to bring this forward. I'm like, you're not at all fidgety anymore. He goes, yeah, I know. I don't like, he would twirl his pen through his fingers like this. Doesn't do any of that anymore. One of my clients, she had to ask her sister how to cut her fingernails because she never had them before.
Well, I know. It's like, as you're saying this, I'm thinking about all the people that can utilize your services. Like my husband is super fidgety, like his family is like, but they also deal with a lot of anxiety. They deal with a lot of depression. They don't ever deal with anything. They just push everything down. Everything's fine, people pleasing. And not that I'm not meaning to be negative about them, but these are just traits that they have that they have accepted or just part of their DNA when they're not like looking within and understanding that this is stress, this is anxiety. And like this guy that has what you had described that was on your hands, his entire body is covered in it. And I was speaking with one of my team members, and I said, a lot of that has to do with stress and anxiety and the amount of Mountain Dew that they drink. But for the most part, it's like the stress and the anxiety. And a lot of people don't really understand how much the body holds and how stress and anxiety can impact your body. When I was going through a lot a few years ago, when everything had happened to me personally, I had this persona, like everything is fine, I've got this, and I kept pushing it down. Well, what happened is my whole entire right arm, I couldn't even move it. I couldn't lift it. I couldn't do anything because I was holding all of the stress and pain and heartache in there. And it wasn't until I started seeking acupuncture and I started doing a lot of stress relieving stuff and doing meditation and doing yoga and having people coach me and doing a lot of breath work and everything, that I was able to move my arm as well. So there's a book called The Body Keeps Score, and super, super powerful. And I think a lot of times when we have the stress and we have the anxiety, we're so quick to call a doctor and get a prescription, right? Instead of using these techniques that you're talking about today.
Yeah. There's so much to unpack in what you just said. I want to go to the DNA for a moment, because sometimes people say, isn't anxiety in like a genetic because my father is anxious, and for the most part, what's happening is we are imitating. So when you're born, you were actually releasing stress hormones and reacting in stress. Anytime your mom like smoked a cigarette or did something that caused you in there to feel a threat. And so when a baby's inside its mom, it makes a 6-second cycle like this with its spine. It's taking fluid in and expressing it to build the lungs. But if it goes into fight or flight, it freezes. So when that baby freezes like that, it's not developing its lungs. So then we come out into the world, right? And now we're reacting to voices, to all sorts of stimulus. It's like all of this stuff is happening to us. And so all sorts of stimuli, plural, so when that's happening, if our moms are really anxious, we're reacting that way too. If you get hurt and your parent goes, oh no, like now anytime you get hurt, like you're supposed to tighten your shoulders, you're supposed to tighten your face. We pick up on all these cues. So it's really fun. And you mentioned this. I had a client, she's an amazing performer. She owns 2 music stores, is a composer, cellist, plays a lot of different instruments. And she also pitches, so she's a softball player. And her left shoulder was frozen, like yours. She didn't even tell me about that at first. But a few weeks into using pressure-free and not releasing those hormones, this could finally heal. So what's interesting is that a lot of us, and I thought you would have your stressful day and then you meditate, pray, exercise, eat right, like you're going to be fine. It's not true. It's not true. You could do all the meditation in the world, and there's many studies to show it helps you while you're doing it and a little bit after, but you're probably going to trigger the stress response when you leave your class. Like I watch people go to yoga and then they're trying to get out onto this busy street and they're all triggered. It's like, whatever you just did in there was nice, but now you've just triggered the stress response. So really, that it doesn't, you could eat the best diet. I have people who are like really high level athletes. They eat the best diet, they exercise, but if they trigger the stress response, they're building fat bands which is why a marathoner can have a heart attack. They're really damaging their heart and this because they're releasing these floods of stress hormones. So it's like I kind of feel like it's when we get gum in our hair and we got to take each little strand out one by one and untangle all the little things that are causing us to trigger. And I teach over 50 tools in that 10-second window because people are so different. So some are mind tools, some are body tools, and then some are life design tools, like some time management things, goal setting. I never know what tools my clients are just going to go, yes, like these are the ones, right? And so sometimes, like, I've shared a couple of tools and someone might be listening to this and say, oh, that doesn't really work for me. And that's why I've had to build so many tools, is because we need to figure out what does work for you. And it could be something so unusual. And I used to, with student clients, I used to try to think ahead, prejudge the tools. Some of my youngest clients use my most sophisticated tools. So I give them everything. Even if they're 10, I give them everything.
Well, that's what I'm thinking. I'm like, you must have it's like you're Mary Poppins, like a bag full of, tools, and it's for the adults, it's for the CEOs, it's for, the children as well. And I think it's really important. I think so much of our mental health is probably why it's so bad is because of all the stress that people are carrying and they're not dealing with it. So I want to dive into the relationship aspect of it too, because I know that we talked a little bit about all of the tools, well, a lot about it, but how has this helped with your relationship with your marriage? Because I'm just thinking some of the listeners today may be like, oh, how can I reduce the stress and how can I utilize this in my relationship?
Yeah. One of the things that I see is that when we're under the influence of these stress hormones, we say things and do things we later regret. Let's face it, it's when we get really bitchy, really or we start complaining about things like, oh my God, the living room's so messy right now. Like, I can't deal with it. Or how come you didn't unload the dishwasher? Like all of that kind of stuff. And the tone in which we're saying a lot of that is something that when someone else hears it can trigger the stress response. So how we show up in our homes really, really matters. And how we speak to each other. I remember the first time my 13-year-old, my eldest, spoke a little disrespectfully to me. He was 13. Really, it had never happened until then because respect was a really big value in our house. And so he was coming back at me with something. And the other two were in the room next door, which was great because they heard this whole thing. I very gently put my hands on his shoulders and got to his level. He was a little shorter than me, so I looked right in his eyes. So we were the same level. Another time when I said, you're moving into high school. The next few years could be so amazing. Like, we can have a really incredible life and we can make so many cool things happen, or they can be a complete crap show and we can be at each other's throats. We can argue about everything that's going on. And so I want you to think about that because you're the one that's going to choose what happens next. And my little ones heard that. So, and this was the boy who just wrote that, right? So it was a really momentous moment because I didn't raise my voice. I got to his level. I wanted him to, he triggered the stress response, obviously. And I didn't know anything about this then. It was just really intuitive of me to get on his level, to have this open conversation about respect, and we're going to plant a vision. Let's plant a vision of how we want the high school years to be. Our high school years with our kids were amazing. Yes, there was crap that happened. And yes, we dealt with it very maturely. And sometimes there were a lot of tears, but it was beautiful. And so we get to do hard things as parents. We get to do hard things. The lines of communication get clearer when there's not all that meta communication. And the other thing to remember that I see frequently is kids have certain chores, like let's say taking out the garbage is their chore, and you've told them and they're not doing it or whatever. And you're like, they're just not listening to me. They're listening, but if their hippocampus is shut down, they can't hear you. They can't lodge it. They don't remember that you even asked them. And so we put a lot of blame and shame on each other in families because, isn't it true? So if you're in a situation, you're like, my husband never hears me. Your husband is stressed. He can't hear you. And we need to cut each other a break and help each other not release these hormones. We call it living pressure free, like living pressure free, so that we can actually communicate and hear each other and see each other. What happens in fight or flight is our eyesight and our ears change, our hearing changes quite a bit. You'll see it in young performers, like their memory goes, they can't perform, they can't even hear what the instructor's telling them, like it's gone, right? Same thing's happening in our homes. So I get this all the time, so-and-so doesn't really see me. They don't really hear, they didn't even notice I got my hair cut or colored or whatever. Right? No, they can't see you. They can't see you because at some point in their day, they triggered these hormones. And for a male, when you trigger these hormones and you're a biological male, it takes up to 9 hours before all the hormone floods have completely dissipated and you're back to normal. But chances are you've triggered another time.
I was going to say, I'm just thinking about my husband and like, he's on the hamster wheel of this. I'm like, okay, I need you to come sooner than later. I know that I was just talking about maybe
I know, no.
having you come a month
We can
later.
just do something privately, Jenny. It's like, but for females, it's an up to 24-hour cycle. And that explains a few things. So I believe it's the reason for the glass ceiling in a lot of professions. As a female conductor, orchestra conductor, I was like, I used all these little techniques to be super calm backstage, right? And I'd be back in the green room with colleagues. Like I remember my conducting debut at Michigan. There's 4 of us that are going to conduct that night. And this one guy's like, how can you be so calm? Because he's just like freaking out, going to the bathroom constantly, like freaking out. And I'm like, because I'm about to step out there and conduct an orchestra, right? So it's like using all these tools back then just to take the stage well. Then I started to apply them to all day long. And that was the difference maker. That was the real big change. So it's there's so many things in our families though that it's interesting to again untangle it and let go of the blame shame game. One of the reasons we do blame and shame, by the way, again, it's because in fight or flight, our brain has to rationalize and justify what's happening. So we'll make up a story like, well, it's my kid's fault I don't have my master's yet. Or it's so-and-so's fault that we're not on time. Like we have to justify it because we feel so out of control. But when you get rid of all of that, you're no longer blaming others and you're much more, I can say this for a fact, I'm so much more patient. I am actually an East Coast, very dark brunette, okay? So I would finish your sentences in the past. I would like very fast, right? And pressure free has helped me settle, feel deep empowerment so I don't have to force my agenda anymore, and actually hear and see others. And that is such a gift. I mean, really, it's almost making me cry. Like, it's such a gift.
It's so powerful as well. I mean, you're changing people's lives. And of course they're going to have to do this throughout, but it's just so many people live in crisis mode and so uptight and stressed that if you were to have the opportunity to work with them, what a breath of fresh air.
And even when, like, I didn't think I needed my own method. I was a little in denial. I thought it was a pretty cool chick, right? So it wasn't true. So sometimes I'm working with someone who simply wants to perform at a higher level, get a promotion at work. I work with a whole group of C-level execs at this one company right now. And it's so fun to help them achieve. But then we get into the weeds, and it's like, here's something that would be helpful for families. One of these execs was telling me how if she brings her children to, it's like a preschool / daycare. If she brings them, she's like, they run in. If she walks in, they already know she's the one who's brought them by how they're behaving versus if her husband brings them in. Okay. So even just the ride in the car. I had someone that lives down in Florida, actually near you, a couple that I coached. So I coached them together, and then we did some individual coaching as well. And they completely transformed in how they took their kid to camp and school, like completely transformed it. And it's just so cool to watch, just a slight change. But where are they a month from now, 2 months from now? Like, these little micro changes we start to make have real impact. So it's like people will say to me, Elle, you're changing our family. This one woman said, you're changing my family for generations because I'm teaching this to my kids. Think about that. Think of the patterns we're breaking,
Definitely. So as you're talking about this, I mean, I'm thinking that you're probably really great at coaching people that maybe are launching their speaking career, or they're doing presentations, or maybe even just doing sales. Because when you have to get in front of someone, flight or flight, oh my gosh, am I going to screw up? Am I going to forget my words? So I feel like this would be a great skill for those individuals to be learning.
Oh, anyone who's doing any sort of performing, so speaking is performing, but also sales. I've coached sales teams, and I call it boosting your like, trust factor. No one's going to buy from you if you've triggered the stress response because you're actually repelling them with these stress hormones. Your throat is going to be tighter, your abs are going to be tighter, your face is going to have a little tension in it. And the other person's going to be like, I don't know if I can trust this person. Like, that's what's going on subconsciously to them. They may not know it, but when you can get that all really, like, I teach a lot of body tools for salespeople to like really open soft in the front, get the whole front really soft. That is huge. Like, people then they lean in. They're like, oh, okay. What do you, instead of the I'm trying to sell you this, right?
Right. It's more welcoming and inviting versus like being defensive and pushing people off. And too, some of your work have to do with energy as well.
Yeah. I start everybody out, but really teaching them about fight or flight and what's going on, especially to their particular situations and what they feel. Like, do they have migraines? Do they have TMJ? Do they grind? Is it gut? Or is it here? Does the airway close? Like, it's hard to breathe. What's happening? And then as we go deeper together, I talk about, especially as I'm opening up the lower chakras, like really opening to empower you. I teach, especially for people who are on stage, you've got to send your energy all the way through the back wall. You're creating a space with your body energy for something to really magically happen. If you're a speaker, same thing. Like, whatever your room is, your energy has to fill the entire room. That person in the back has to feel like you're looking right at them. So it's like this you're creating a container. If it's one-on-one sales, even on Zoom, like, you can create an energy that's going to be so conducive to a beautiful conversation. So you're right. And then I also do some protective things for people, because once you start living this way, like, you do become a bit of a magnet. Like, people they want to get close to you. And so it's like, how do you protect yourself from energy that you might not want in your energy space? Without, I really don't like it when people say, oh, that person's toxic, or I don't resonate, or whatever. Yeah, there's going to be people we don't quite resonate with, but how can we be more understanding and welcoming and still retain our safety? Like, you can do it. It's powerful and it's fun. But that's when my people who are really stepping up in leadership, that's important. We can't just diss people. We can't. If you're a leader, if you're really a leader, every single person in your group or community, if you're a political leader, like, they are your people. They're your people.
Yeah, 100%. Like, as you're talking about this, I'm just like, your services are so needed for so many people. I was also just thinking too, I used to be in the bridal industry. So I used to do pop-up bridal shows. Like, every single weekend I was in a different city. And I remember when I was training my team members that even on day 3, you have to bring the energy. You have to bring something that's like showcases all of the goods and all the services. And you have to be really, really happy because this is the first experience they're going to have, even though it's your third day at like the 100th show of the year. So when you're talking about having this energy going to the back of the room, like that was super, super powerful and super important for my training for my team members, because and same with our concerts. Like we do 3 concerts a night at my music school. That third concert needs to have as much energy as the first concert. And you may be stressed and you may be tired, but you can't showcase that. So I think even having you even speak on that element and the importance of that, of always showing up, no matter how tired you are, the third time or fourth time, it's still the first time that many of the people are going to be coming in contact with you.
Mm-hmm. I want to share a story about my mother-in-law, actually. My mother-in-law had something really, really not nice happen to her. She was 96 at the time, 95, 96 years old. And we lived the farthest away, family-wise. No one had gone to check on her. And I looked at my husband, I'm like, is no one up there going to go check on her? Like, so I go, I'm going. I just get in the car. And I'm a New England girl, so I grabbed some lobsters and I got a chick flick and I showed up at her door and she was heading in to take a nap. My mother-in-law lived in a really beautiful home. It was always really neat, and anyway, she was going in to head in for a nap and I said, "Oh, go ahead, go take your nap. I'll just wait till you get up and I'll make a dinner for us and blah, blah, blah." So she goes, "Oh, no. She goes, "Are those lobsters?" So I put the lobsters in the fridge. I walked in the kitchen and it was untidy, which is not her normal way of being. Like it had been like 2 days of real chaos in her life. And so we start cleaning up together. We sit on the couch. We have this conversation. She cries in my arms. Like we're just really going deep into it. It's really amazing. And so like hours are going by and I'm like, oh, it's kind of time to start dinner. So we make dinner together and then we eat and then we watch this chick flick and we stayed up till like, I don't know, after 1 a.m. This is a 96-year-old woman. She wasn't physically tired. She was emotionally tired. There's a big difference. And the smallest thing, like this bag of lobsters and a terrible chick flick, I think it was like, Maid of Honor. No. What is that?
Oh, there is a Maid of Honor movie.
One of those. It was one of those.
Okay.
It was hilarious. But just that sparked her. Also, someone caring. Was a spark. And that woman stayed up till 1 a.m. She didn't take a nap, right? So we have so much more ability. But what drains us is emotional exhaustion. The stress hormones are the main piece of that. The second flood of hormones can make you feel anxious for no reason. That's like that spinning when you're trying to go to sleep at night or waking you up at 2 or 3 a.m. So that is what we get to clean up. And then suddenly my clients, like that composer was talking about, she gained 3 hours of productive time in her day. It's huge. I gained like an hour and a half to 2 hours at first at like the 8-week mark. And now I would say it's between 2 and 3 hours of productive time. It's just amazing. But the emotional exhaustion takes us out.
Yeah, I can see why so many people are hiring you and you're traveling all over the country. So before we wrap up, I've got 2 more questions for you. One being, if there was anything that we could implement today that would change our life, reduce our stress, what is one thing that we can do?
That morning time, 10 seconds, whenever something starts to happen, just zip your lips, relax your abs, smile, and just give yourself a moment before you start yelling, hurry up, we're going to be late. Like, watch that morning time. If you can get some of those triggers relaxed, that's going to help everybody in your home.
Probably throughout the whole day, your work life, your home life.
Throughout the whole day. You're starting the day better because you're going to hit other triggers, but we're cloudy if we really mess up before we even leave the house.
Okay. Thank you for sharing that. And then before we go, I want you to share how people can connect with you. You offer private coaching, live coaching, group coaching. You have so many things going on. So tell us what you do and how can we connect with you? Because I know we all need you on our team.
Yeah. I want to be on your team. I care. I believe everyone deserves a beautiful life, a fulfilling life, no matter the challenges. And so private coaching, I have a certification program for anybody who helps others. So that could be healthcare, mental health, athletic coaches, anyone who wants to add something in that would break that stress cycle so people can perform better. So that's a certification program I do. I coach groups of any size, and I travel and I speak at conventions and conferences and whatever, workplace trainings. And then I do have a book on Amazon. It's Pressure-Free Parenting. And if you're a listener, I created the whole thing in a video. So if you want that, just let me know. I can pop that to you. And you can find everything on my site, which is Elle Ingalls. It's like the magazine, Elle, E-L-L-E, and Little House on the Prairie. So that's how you can remember me. ElleIngalls.com. There's a big pink button for a free consultation. I really like to talk to humans, like really hear you, really see if this is a good fit for you. So that's how you can find me, and you'll see other resources on there too.
I love it. You're absolutely amazing. I'm so grateful that your son encouraged you to take this path. Obviously, I'm looking forward to having you come to my music school, giving you a tour, learning from you, having you engage with all of our people. Thank you for sharing all your knowledge and your wisdom and giving us some really great tools that we can implement in our life today. I'm wishing everyone a really stress-free day. I'm sure you can think of 5 people, if not 10 people, to send this podcast to. We want you to forward it to them as soon as we end up. Please text or send this link to some of your friends. They can benefit from Elle and all the services that she has to offer, whether they're a parent, a CEO, a manager, no matter what they are. Everybody can benefit from this philosophy and utilizing these tools and resources. So thank you so much for tuning in today. Definitely give us a review. And Elle, thank you again for joining me. I really appreciate it.
Thanks, Jenny. It was great.
Thanks for listening to the Stroke It podcast today. If you want to stroke me, please consider giving me a 5-star review, sharing this podcast with 5 of your favorite friends or someone you may think could benefit from the podcast, and consider joining my collective. It's completely free for the first 30 days, and you can go to jennysfreegift.com.